Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, May 8th, 2021, May 9th, 2021, not May 8th. Today we're going to be talking about the state of California recall election that's set to occur later on in 2021 pertaining to Governor Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor who was recently elected, formerly the Lieutenant Governor of California, that is facing this recall effort as a result of a number of scandals that have been building up against his administration, most recently being the French laundry scandal, which was Gavin Newsom not following his own COVID-19 protocols. Now, this was November of 2020, so we're talking about a little bit ago, but this ultimately sparked a lot of criticism from both the left and the right towards Gavin Newsom that has now proceeded to move into this recall effort to remove him as governor of the state of California. Now, with this recall effort, a lot of people have been announcing that they are running for governor, but none more notable than Caitlyn Jenner of the state of California. Caitlyn Jenner is a very well-known celebrity, and California has a pretty strong history of electing celebrities, if I do say so myself. I think that Caitlyn Jenner certainly is a Republican that you wouldn't necessarily expect. She's transgender. You find very few LGBT citizens across the country actually identifying as Republican, and she's actually one of the more notable ones, one of the more notable candidates on this list, potentially the only one that will really capture media attention for as long as she has. Now, Caitlyn Jenner isn't doing too well in terms of the polling data. There was a lot of hype around her campaign, a lot of media discussion, which you might expect to think moves into and translates into support across the state. But unfortunately for her, it just simply does not. The reason why I'm making this video is because we finally have a new poll that assesses the state of California and where they stand on the recall effort following Caitlyn Jenner's announcement. Now, Ronald Reagan was a celebrity turned governor turned president. You have Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a celebrity turned governor of California, who actually was elected through the last recall effort. Now, Caitlyn Jenner probably thinks that she is the next Arnold Schwarzenegger, but based off the data that I'm about to show you, chances are she won't even be able to get there whatsoever. Let's take a look. So in terms of the recall effort itself, we haven't really seen too much overwhelming support for it. The numbers are at a high 40 and then a 36 in the most recent Survey USA poll. However, the no do not remove is not always above 50%, actually only recently topped 50% according to a Public Policy Institute of California poll, which put it at 56% amongst the voters who say no do not remove. But the most recent one from Survey USA just has it at 47%. So while there's an 11-point lead in favor of Gavin Newsom, that 36% number and the 47% number are both under 50, which means there are still undecided voters that could ultimately sway it in one way or another. But the question was beyond, do you support the recall or not? They also asked if the recall effort was to go through, who would you back? Now, no Democrats have announced that they are running, so all of these people on here are Republicans, which is why 38% of all voters say they would not support any, and an additional 26% say they are undecided. So you're looking at the pure Republican vote here, the pure vote amongst those who are actually considering voting for a Republican in the event that Gavin Newsom is recalled. Well, the numbers aren't good for Caitlyn Jenner, even amongst her own party. She's currently polling at 5%. John Cox, who was the 2018 Republican nominee against Gavin Newsom, lost by, you're talking a victory for Gavin Newsom over 20 points, and yet he is polling better, 2-1 over Caitlyn Jenner. So the thing is, Caitlyn Jenner is not popular within her own party. She is not popular amongst Democrats. She is not going to be the next governor of the state of California if everything holds to these numbers, or even, a little bit beyond that. Chances are Gavin Newsom will survive this recall effort, but apparently some people expected Caitlyn Jenner to shake up this race and make it dramatically different. But the numbers don't lie. 5% amongst the entire California voting group. And that honestly is probably where she will peak. Looking at a lot of these candidates, you have people that are local politicians and somewhat recognizable. I think John Cox is probably one of the more recognizable names, but if you're just looking at the list, Caitlyn Jenner certainly strikes out as the celebrity candidate, but not necessarily as someone who is viable to be the next governor of the state of California. She has been criticized, ostracized by the left wing because of some of her more recent political views and older ones. In 2016, she endorsed Donald Trump for president of the United States and then went on to criticize him. But the damage had already been done in the eyes of the Democratic Party. Caitlyn Jenner, who was supposed to be a representation for transgender girls across the nation, voted and endorsed President Trump in the 2016 election. Now, of course, even though you do flip-flop, you're still going to receive that criticism. Now, Caitlyn Jenner tries to far separate herself from President Trump because she knows that he is not a liked candidate or person in the state of California. Donald Trump receiving just 34% of the vote, underperforming John Cox in a Democratic wave year. So if Donald Trump is underperforming Republicans, despite the Republican being getting 38% in a Democratic wave year, she might think if it's a red wave year that California might actually vote red. Well, unfortunately for her, that is not the scenario that we are in. In addition, because she did endorse President Trump, that is going to haunt her in this election. But I honestly don't think she's separating herself as much as she could. Take a look at the President Trump website. It might remind you, it might be very similar to the one that you're seeing on CaitlynJenner.com. Now I notice a few things like this between campaigns where they sort of replicate the top official in their party, and if they do so, it typically means that they are fully on board with them. You know, I'm not trying to read into the tea leaves and try to draw conclusions that aren't there, but it's true when you do see similar styles of campaigning. You see similar messaging. For example, Amanda Chase has the slogan, "Make Virginia Great Again." She's alluding to President Trump, and it's very clear. Take a look at Caitlyn Jenner's website and tell me there isn't a very clear connection between President Trump. Other than the shading of red and white and then flipping it on the boxes, you really don't see a significant change. In addition, when you scroll down, you pretty much see the exact same website as President Trump's. Look at it. You're talking about help fulfill our promises to make America great again. You have a thing that says join the fight. Enter your email. I mean, it's an exact replica of President Trump. Look at the bottom. Join our movement. Enter your email. The box structure, the website is a very clear replica of President Trump's. She knows exactly what she's doing. And the voters that will recognize this are probably going to support her. So as much as Caitlyn Jenner would like to go out against President Trump for some of his more anti-transgender policies in her eyes during his administration, she's very quick to try to replicate what he had and what he is doing now. And I just find that to be very interesting. So there's a lot to connect between Caitlyn Jenner and President Trump, well beyond the fact that she even endorsed him in 2016. There's a reason why she isn't polling well. It's not just that. It's not just her trying to separate herself, but also appease Trump supporters. You have to recognize that the Republican Party is inherently more conservative than the Democratic Party. That was easy, right? Well, then you have to move on to the fact that it's more traditional, more conforming to societal expectations. Caitlyn Jenner, being a transgender individual, not necessarily conforming to quote-unquote societal standards or traditional values as the Republican Party would put it. I think that it's very true that many members of the GOP view that as the sole reason or one of the main reasons why they would refuse to vote for her. In many ways, not even recognizing her as a legitimate person. I think that it's very interesting that she decided to run as a Republican. Now, I understand that she is a Republican, but the fact that she's running altogether really is surprising just because she probably isn't going to win. It would just be a waste of money. Yeah, she's worth $100 million, give or take a few, but you probably don't want to be wasting all your money on that race. But she's raising a little bit, so I guess you can sort of justify that because it's not her money. But at the end of the day, she isn't necessarily a viable candidate, and the numbers are telling us that because she's running in a party that's still on every single statewide GOP has not even been supportive of the idea of gay marriage. Not a single Republican Party statewide out of the Northeast has even acknowledged that gay marriage is legal and should be considered so. You've seen the national GOP say that they condemn the 2015 ruling allowing gay marriage across the United States. So Caitlyn Jenner is certainly viewed as somewhat of an anomaly within the GOP, especially being a major name for the party nomination in 2021. Now, this isn't necessarily a party nomination because it isn't a political party primary. It's an open primary. It's going to, whoever is able to win. But the fact she's at 5% doesn't necessarily surprise me. In addition, she's been taking some stances that have certainly turned off a lot of liberal voters. Now, if Caitlyn Jenner is to actually win a governor's race in the state of California, God knows she will need liberal voters. Pundits, she knows she will need Democratic voters. So when she comes out and says that it's unfair for transgender girls in women's sports, you might think, oh, she of all people would get to speak on that. But the opinion is not a popular one amongst Democrats. In fact, it's probably one of the more unpopular ones. This statement in itself possibly eliminated a significant portion of the electorate that she desperately needs to win over. And chances are she wasn't winning over it anyway, but I don't understand why she's making these bold statements when she isn't exactly already in the favorite amongst these certain demographic groups. Can you imagine how transgender individuals or just any member of the LGBTQ plus community responding to a comment such as this? I can tell you now, around 90% are not going to agree with it. The other 10%, maybe. But 90%, an overwhelming majority, aren't going to agree with this. And they're going to sit here and say, this is not a statement she should have made. This is not a statement I want to hear from potentially the next governor of the state of California, an already liberal state. So she's already alienating herself and running under a party that already alienates itself in the state of California. So it's like she's saying, I don't want a single liberal vote, but I can't win without it, so please vote for me. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, some of these statements that she's making, politically speaking, because it's turning off plenty and plenty of voters in a state that isn't too kind to Republicans in the first place. So I don't know exactly why she is going out and making these statements and going on to interviews and being asked these questions without just trying to pander or not answer the question as many politicians do, because at the end of the day, she's not polling well. Survey USA is telling us what we already knew was going to happen. She's polling in the single digits, and amongst her own party, which is pretty much the only people who have responded to this poll so far, given that no Democrats have announced that they are running in the event that Gavin Newsom is recalled. You know, amongst Republicans, she's barely getting a sliver of their support, despite having one of the most recognizable and one of the most top names in the election. She might think she's Arnold Schwarzenegger. She might think she's Ronald Reagan. She might think she's President Trump, but she's none of the three. She isn't going to waltz into this primary or this election and win simply because she is a celebrity. It's worked for some, but she will be a failing exception or a standard. You know, celebrities don't always win their elections. We just know about the ones who do because they do win their elections, and you sort of draw that conclusion that celebrities always win. But Caitlyn Jenner will remind us that celebrities don't always win, even rich ones. She's worth $100 million. She could funnel a lot of money into this race, but at the end of the day, it's all determined as to whether or not Gavin Newsom is recalled. In addition, the voters have to select her in the second round. Right now, she's being outpaced by John Cox and on par with other candidates. That's not necessarily good for someone who has received the most media attention out of every single one of these candidates, besides, obviously, Gavin Newsom. So I don't think that this is a realistic campaign. I don't think that this is something that is going to be super impactful or have a dramatic change on the California leadership. The Caitlyn Jenner announcement was pretty much just a major media attention grab, but beyond that, it really isn't changing much about California, if at all. She's not a viable candidate. She's not going to make it past single digits in the primary or in the general election as it holds now. We don't know entirely when this recall effort is going to go ahead and occur. It says it's likely to occur in November. The Secretary of State confirmed that the signatures are there, so we still have to wait for the state to finally release the date. But chances are we will see a Democrat announce that they are running. We don't have anyone that is major running as a Democrat, but amongst Republicans, you have a pretty significant list with Caitlyn Jenner leading the largest amount, just being, or having the most attention, just being a celebrity and someone who has been covered by the media for decades, that will continue to be covered by the media until the general election. But at the end of the day, that media coverage, that press coverage is not necessarily translating into support. In addition, she really isn't working for it either. So, main takeaway, as much as she has tried to disconnect herself from President Trump, she seems to be replicating him on her own website. It's kind of interesting that she would do this. Honestly, maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe she's just asking the same people who, make Donald Trump's website. I'm not entirely sure why she would do this, if she truly wants to be disconnected from President Trump. But at the end of the day, it is just a website. I'm not going to read too far into it, but I am going to point it out because I think that the messaging is clear. In addition, Caitlyn Jenner will likely not be the next governor of the state of California, simply because 1, Gavin Newsom probably won't be recalled, and 2, she's only polling at 5%, even amongst the Republican base, which seem to be the only respondents in this poll so far. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2022 midterm election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.